Hello everybody, this is Freddy from We Scale Your Brand, where we help 6-figure and 7-figure e-commerce brands grow through Facebook ads. And today's video will be all about 3 key lessons that I learned after spending over $1 million on Facebook ads in 2021. I've probably spent around 3 or 4 million, but I thought 1 million would sound nicer, just, so that you know that I'm not giving any false date. This is one of the brands that I manage, and as you can see, in 2021 we spent almost 1 million so far, only $200 missing. But yeah, let's get back to the chart and let's go over each lesson. So the first lesson is basically less is more. Especially since iOS 14.5 came out, Facebook is using all those model data. It is super helpful to focus your spend in as few campaigns as possible, with as few ad sets as possible, in as few ads as possible. I know that sounds kind of complicated, and it can be way more complicated than you think to kind of, optimize an account to the less is more kind of approach. But I want to go over each of those points super quickly. So campaigns. Usually what I like to do, what I like to have is one testing campaign, one scaling campaign, then one middle of funnel retargeting, one bottom of funnel retargeting. This highly depends on the spend level that you are at. If your spend level is low, you can have one testing campaign and one scaling campaign per product or per kind of, thing that you're advertising. If you have, for example, one product with like multiple designs, you can count this basically as one. And I like to have one campaign for that. However, if you're advertising like watches, sunglasses, and shorts, you could have 3 scaling campaigns and like 3 creative testing campaigns for that, as an example. And then the ad sets, I like to keep them to a minimum as well. Usually, especially in my scaling campaigns, I have maximum of like 3 or 4 ad sets in there. Even if it's spending like 5,000 per day, 6,000 per day, I have usually broad, like 1% lookalike, maybe 5% lookalike, and maybe 1 interest. But broad is definitely the way to go when it comes to ad sets. Your targeting, doesn't matter as much as you think. Then when it comes to creatives, in my scaling campaigns, I usually have between 2 to 5 ad sets, or 2 to 5 ads, 2 to 5 creatives, that are proven, that are total winners, that I can scale my account with. And then if I test new stuff and I found a new winner, I just turn off my worst performing ad and I put in the new creative. And this is usually how it works. So I also don't have like 10, 20 ads. That's a thing of the past. Maybe again, if you have multiple different products, you have multiple different scaling campaigns, and then you would have obviously more kind of scaling creatives. However, for one product store, for one product, I usually only have 2 to 5 ads that are winners that I can scale my account up with. Then when it comes to testing, it's kind of the same approach as, with the scaling campaigns. I usually have one testing campaign where I put my creative tests in, my audience tests, whatever I'm testing. Maybe I'm testing a landing page or whatever. This also depends kind of on the spend level. If you are spending anywhere, maybe up to 1.5K or maybe even 2K per day, I would say all you need is one testing campaign. If you maybe go above that and you want to, test audiences way more in depth, or like you want to put a higher emphasis on creative testing, or maybe you want to do lots of like landing page testings, then it can be useful to have multiple testing campaigns. So if you're not spending much, you can kind of, put those together. And then kind of, retargeting, as I kind of said, this depends on your spend level. What I like to do sometimes is have no specific retargeting campaign. I just put them together with my, scaling campaign. I'm not using any exclusions in that instance. I will go over exclusions in just a second, but then I just simply put my best retargeting interests in my scaling campaign, right? And this way I have maybe a broad interest. Then I have like all website visitors 180 days and like 95% video viewers 365 days. Again, broad interest, broad, retargeting ad sets, even broad retargeting groups, so that Facebook can optimize the best way possible. And then exclusions. For a long time, I really liked using exclusions. I would exclude Facebook engagers, website visitors, people who purchase, etc., all from my top of the funnel campaigns. However, lately that's kind of beginning to change. Simply because I feel like less exclusions give Facebook better room to breathe, and therefore the performance tends to be better if I'm not using as many exclusions. Maybe I'm only excluding like people purchased in the last 30 days or something like that. And yeah, I begin to shift to way less exclusions lately. And I would highly suggest that you try the same. Even if you have specific retargeting campaigns, give it a shot, try getting rid of those exclusions and see how that affects your performance. Obviously, you will maybe reach less new people, but if your CPA drops for that, maybe even your new customer CPA, then that is worth it. Then next point, obviously, number one, less is more, when it comes to campaigns, ad sets, creatives, testing, retargeting, and exclusions. And then the second point, creative is key. Again, especially after iOS 14.5, even before creatives were, what made or what differentiates the kind of winning brands from losing brands when it comes to Facebook ads. Since iOS 14.5, it is even more important to have great creatives. They are what make or break your ad account. Many people don't get this. You can have the best website in the world. You can have the best account structure, the best ad copy, the best headline, the best targeting. It doesn't matter if you're creative, whether it is an image, carousel, video, or whatever. If that is bad, you won't win at Facebook ads. So that doesn't mean that you need super high quality production videos, super high quality production images. Not at all. It just means that you need to have great creative that fits to your brand, right? On some brands that I used to work with or that I work with, UGC content and like super low quality without any subtitles was the best. Then on some other brands, high quality production videos, super good edited was what was the winning creative, right? So there's no right or wrong. I would suggest, especially if you're just starting out, you don't need to invest a lot of budget. Maybe buy like, green screen, record some footage, edit it in a slightly advanced way, and then you should be very good to go, right? So to sum this up, obviously creative is key. It matters the most. It probably even matters more than your website, because I think a great creative can improve your conversion rate, even if your website isn't that great looking. So if you're just starting out, put your highest emphasis on those creatives. Then the last thing is kind of you focus on the wrong metrics, right? A lot of people worry about their CPM, about their CTR, about their CPC, about their cost per add to cart. And the truth is that all of that doesn't really matter. It matters to some extent, don't get me wrong, but the single most important metrics that you can pay attention to is the CPA, right? And maybe even the new customer CPA, you're trying to grow your business, you're trying, let's say you have great lifetime value. So what matters for you is maybe getting new people into kind of your store funnel, getting people into the brand. Then obviously new customer CPA or just your CPA on average is what matters the most, right? And why I'm saying, why the CPM doesn't matter, or CPC doesn't matter, or CTR doesn't matter is because you can have a great CPA with a high CPC. You can have a great CPA with a low CTR. You can have a great CPA with a high CPM, right? That's what most people don't get, especially the CPM myth. So most people are concerned about having high CPMs. And, obviously especially in Q4, CPMs tend to be higher versus, Q1 where not as many people are advertising or not as many brands are advertising. However, a high CPM doesn't have to be that. For example, if you would target broad and you would target 1% lookalike, the 1% lookalike would have a higher CPM because the 1% lookalike is more targeted. It is smaller. It has higher value people in there. Therefore, Facebook kind of charges you a bonus for that, right? Facebook knows that those people are more valuable than people who are just, in your broad audience. And again, that's why they charge you more. This doesn't mean that broad is better than 1% lookalike, right? It is kind of a mix. Sometimes, a higher CPM can very well be worth it. And you get a bit better with CPA, a lower CPA with a higher CPM, and then, with a lower CPM. And this is stuff that you have to understand. Kind of CPC and CTR goes hand in hand, with that, because obviously if your CPM is high, your CTR tends to be higher as well, because in theory, at least, those people who you pay a high CPM for are more interested in your brand. Look at retargeting. You're paying way more of a CPM in retargeting than for, your broad top of the funnel targeting. And this doesn't mean that retargeting is bad. It just means that those people are more valuable and in theory should have a lower CPM as the lower CPA, right? And same goes for CPC, CTR. Again, it's not as important as you think. Obviously has some impact, But the single most important metric that you can pay attention to is the CPA. And I've had ads where I was paying like $3 for a click versus $1 for a click for another ad. And the ad with the $3 cost per click was better performing than the one with the $1 click. Then other metrics, cost per add to cart, cost per initiate checkout. They used to be somewhat valuable, but now because you can't look at the, cost per unique add to cart anymore, it is, not as valuable anymore, because if a person adds multiple products it kind of counts as multiple add to carts. Therefore, it's not as useful anymore, especially if you have, a store where people add multiple products to their cart. It still has some impact, but definitely not as much as it used to have. So yeah, that's, the 3 lessons that I learned after spending over $1 million in Facebook ads, probably close to 3 million or 4 million in 2021. Less is more, creative is key. And then you definitely focus, or most people focus, on the wrong metrics. The only thing that really matters is your CPA or your new customer CPA. And yeah, if you have any questions, if you are a brand that is, between 6 and 7 figures and then wants to scale, feel free to hit the first link in the description and get in touch with us. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of the day.